If you're listening to this, then I've already broken my promise. I told myself I wouldn't share, that keeping it buried was the only way to stay safe. But silence is heavier than confession, and after what I've seen, I can't carry it alone anymore. You might think it's ridiculous, being scared of a used phone I bought online. Who hasn't done that? Scrolling through eBay listings late at night, convincing yourself you're saving money. For most people, that's all it is. A good deal. A harmless, ordinary transaction. But not this time. This time, what I brought into my house wasn't just a phone. It was a door. And once I opened it, something else walked through. I didn't understand at first. I thought it was just a glitch, a corrupted file, maybe malware. But when your device begins showing you things you've never searched for, when you hear voices speaking your name in recordings you didn't make, when your own reflection lingers in the black screen just a second too long, how do you write that off as just technology? No, this was never about the phone itself. It was about what was left behind on it, what was waiting. And here's the part you need to pay attention to, because this isn't only my problem anymore. It spreads. Not like a virus you can delete or a scam you can block. No, it spreads in ways you don't notice until it's too late. Through pixels, through sound, through the simple act of looking, listening, remembering. I tried to throw it away. I tried smashing it, burying it, even burning it. But some things don't end with fire. Some things burn cleaner in the dark. I shouldn't even be recording this. Every word I speak risks dragging someone else in. But maybe you'll believe me before it's too late. Maybe one person hearing this will choose differently, will stop themselves from opening what should have stayed closed. Because I didn't. I opened it. I looked. I listened. And now I can't tell where my life ends and the recordings begin. You're wondering what was on that phone. You want to know? That curiosity, it's the same trap I fell into. I'm warning you, don't follow me down this path. But if you're watching this, maybe it's already too late. To understand how I got here, I need to go back to the day the package arrived. I didn't need another phone. Let me start there. My current one worked fine, screen intact, battery decent, nothing to complain about. But late at night, scrolling through eBay listings with that mix of boredom and impulse, I stumbled on something that felt like it was waiting for me. It was an older model, the kind that came out when I was in high school. Chunky, heavier than today's glass slabs, with those satisfying physical buttons I used to swear I'd never let go of. Call it nostalgia, or maybe just the thrill of holding a piece of the past in my hand again. The listing was simple. Pre-owned. Works. No returns. The photos showed scratches, sure, but nothing fatal. The price was what hooked me. Dirt cheap. Cheaper than a replacement screen protector for the phone I already owned. I told myself I was buying it for backups or experiments. Truth is, I just wanted to see what was on it. There's always that faint, guilty curiosity. Who owned this thing before me? What texts? What photos? What tiny fragments of their life were accidentally left behind? Most people wipe their devices clean, but not everyone. I hit by now without thinking twice. The confirmation email came instantly, and for a day or two, I forgot about it. The package arrived in one of those yellow bubble mailers, edges soft from being reused too many times. No return address, just my name scrawled in thin black marker. Inside was the phone, rattling loose in a box too big for it. No charger, no instructions, just a scratched, battered rectangle that smelled faintly of cigarettes and something else. Something sharper, like burnt plastic. The box itself was worse. Torn along one side, smudged with a dark, greasy stain I didn't want to think about too hard. My first instinct was to laugh it off. This is what you get for buying junk online, I muttered, shaking my head. But there was a detail I couldn't laugh off. A slip of paper tucked beneath the phone, folded twice. The handwriting was uneven, jagged, almost desperate. Just one line. Don't reset. Already prepared. The grammar was broken, the message short, but it stuck with me. Who writes something like that? And what exactly was prepared? I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the seller didn't want me to brick the phone. Maybe English wasn't their first language. Logical explanations. Reasonable explanations. But as I held the device in my hand, cool and faintly sticky against my skin, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was holding more than just secondhand tech. And I was right. It wasn't the condition of the phone that disturbed me. It was what was still on it. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. The screen took longer than it should have to light up. almost like the phone was dragging itself awake from somewhere it shouldn't have been. I expected the generic startup animation, maybe the logo, maybe even that cheerful little jingle manufacturers slap on their devices. Instead, the screen blinked once, twice, and landed straight on the home screen. The wallpaper wasn't stock. It wasn't some preloaded pattern or bland landscape. It was a photo, blurred, grainy, and dark, like it had been taken in a hurry or in a place that didn't want to be captured. The image looked like a room, though I couldn't say what kind. A lamp sat crooked on a table in the corner. The rest was shadows, shapes my eyes tried to make sense of but couldn't. I frowned, brushing it off as nothing more than someone's bad taste in wallpapers. Still, my thumb hovered over the screen longer than it should have. The battery icon caught my eye next. Nearly full. That was strange enough. Phones this old are lucky to hold a charge for more than a few hours. But even stranger, it barely seemed to dip as I poked around. It was as if the thing had been waiting for me, charged and preserved. The menus lagged a little, but not as much as I'd expect from hardware this ancient. No SIM card inside, but the notification bar told a different story. It showed missed calls, dozens of them, each marked at the same time, 3:33 a.m. The numbers weren't familiar either, long, fragmented strings that didn't match any real area code. I should have powered it down right then. Should have laughed, tossed it aside, told myself I'd been duped by some seller unloading junk. Instead, I kept swiping, kept exploring. There were folders pre-installed that didn't belong to any brand I knew. Not music or photos or downloads. These were bare labels, blunt and strange. Listen, look, keep. The icons looked slightly wrong too. Pixelated, off-color. Almost like placeholders that were never meant to be visible. Each time I tapped one, the screen glitched, just for a fraction of a second, before the app opened. Sometimes it flashed a white screen, sometimes black. And once, I swear, I caught a reflection in that brief flicker that wasn't mine. A face, pale and grainy, like an old webcam feed. I laughed nervously, shook my head, muttered something about paranoia. But my chest felt tight, and the weight of the phone in my hand suddenly seemed heavier. Finally, my thumb slid to the gallery app. The icon pulsed faintly, as if the phone itself wanted me to press it. The moment I did, the device froze for a full second, then unlocked into a grid. Not dozens of photos, not hundreds, thousands. An endless cascade of tiny squares stretching down the screen, each one a moment frozen in time. And against every ounce of better judgment, I started scrolling. The gallery loaded in chunks, as if the phone was straining to contain everything inside it. At first, it looked almost boring, like a stranger's digital junk drawer. Random screenshots of web pages, blurry shots of streets and storefronts I didn't recognize, a few selfies of someone I couldn't quite make out. The face was always partly obscured, too close to the lens, or blurred by motion. I scrolled deeper. The casual randomness of the images should have been reassuring. Ordinary. But there was something about the order, the progression, that made me uneasy. It wasn't just a gallery, it felt like a timeline. The early photos had people in them. Crowds on sidewalks, cars at intersections, a birthday party in someone's backyard. All the faces were blurred, not by censorship but by movement, distortion. Like the camera refused to capture them clearly. The effect was grotesque. Arms bent at odd angles. Mouths stretched mid-laugh until they looked like open wounds. Further down, the people began to vanish. The photos shifted to empty rooms. Bedrooms with unmade beds. Hallways with fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Office spaces with chairs pushed back, as though everyone had left in a hurry. No context. No captions. Just vacant spaces, sterile and watchful. Then came the close-ups. Eyes, unblinking, framed so tightly the lashes blurred into abstract lines. Noses, cheeks pressed too close to the lens. The kind of shots you only get if you press the phone directly against your skin. They weren't selfies. They felt more like studies. Like the device was cataloging details rather than capturing memories. I scrolled faster, unsettled but unable to stop. My stomach twisted when I noticed some of the distorted selfies. The ones with faces too warped to recognize still had one detail that remained crisp: the eyes. Always staring straight into the camera. Straight into me. By now, my palms were damp against the casing. I told myself it was just a collection of someone's experiments. Maybe a wannabe artist or a broken phone sensor. But the pit in my chest said otherwise. I texted a friend, half laughing, half shaking. Dude, this used phone I bought has thousands of creepy pics on it. Blurry faces, empty rooms. Looks like surveillance or something. He responded in seconds. That's not normal. Delete them. Wipe the phone. Delete them. Easy advice. But I didn't. Because part of me needed to see how deep it went. The photos grew worse. Windows at night, with faint silhouettes beyond the glass. Doorways photographed from the floor, like the camera had been left lying there, waiting. Pictures of stairwells descending into shadows that never seemed to end. And then, my stomach dropped. The landmarks changed. I recognized them. The faded mural on the corner of my street. The rusting swing set in the park I used to walk past every morning. A gas station with its flickering neon sign. The more I scrolled, the closer it came. The diner 2 blocks away. The bus stop at the edge of my neighborhood. My own street, unmistakable under the glare of a crooked streetlight. I froze. My thumb hovered above the screen, trembling. I didn't want to scroll further, but I did. The last photo wasn't of a stranger. It wasn't of an empty room, or a street, or a building. It was of me. I don't know when it was taken. Maybe on my walk home last week. Maybe last night, while I slept. The shot was angled from across the street, blurry but unmistakable. My jacket, my face tilted downward. My expression empty, unaware. For a long time, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was stare at the image, waiting for it to blink or move. My friend's message buzzed again, delete. Now. But my hand wouldn't move. Because if the photos showed where I'd been, then maybe the videos showed what happened there. I tapped over to the videos folder, half hoping it would be empty. It wasn't. There were dozens of files. No labels, just long strings of numbers and symbols, like dates that didn't make sense. My heart thudded as I opened the first one. The screen filled with shaky, handheld footage of a house at night. The camera lingered outside a lit window, too far to see clearly inside, but close enough to know what was happening. A person, unaware, asleep, curled on their side. The recording zoomed slowly, as if savoring the intimacy of the intrusion. I could almost hear their breathing, faint under the hiss of background static. I skipped to the next video. Different house, same scenario, another person asleep, filmed through glass. The camera always approached slowly, almost reverently. But there was something else. A sound under the footage. At first I thought it was wind. Then I realized it was whispering. Not words I could understand, but low, rhythmic murmurs, as if several voices were reciting something in unison. A chant. My skin prickled. I turned the volume down, but even at the lowest setting, I swore I could still hear it, crawling beneath the noise like a secret meant only for the listener. I opened another video. This one shook more violently, the lens darting toward a darkened living room. A woman shifted in her sleep on the couch, unaware. The whispering grew louder. Then the video cut, abruptly, mid-frame. I backed out, my hands slick with sweat, but the urge to know pulled me back. I scrolled further down until I saw one file larger than the rest. Its timestamp recent. Too recent. When I opened it, the phone froze. The screen flickered white, then black, before finally sputtering to life. For a moment, it looked like corrupted static. Then the frame sharpened. I froze. The room on the screen wasn't a stranger's. It wasn't some distant house or anonymous bedroom. It was mine. My bed. My dresser. The posters on the wall. The angle came from the corner, where no camera should have been. The image stuttered, glitching, as though the phone itself resisted showing me more. But I saw enough. My own body lying in the bed, chest rising and falling in the rhythm of sleep. My throat went dry. I hit pause, but the app didn't respond. The footage kept jumping forward in bursts of seconds, like it wanted me to watch even if I didn't. In one flicker of frames, my eyes were closed. In the next, they were open, wide, staring straight at the lens. I don't remember that. I don't remember ever waking. My thumb smashed the back button until the screen finally returned to the folder view. The video file sat there, its thumbnail now a blurred still of my face. Eyes hollow, expression flat. It wasn't just footage of strangers. It was personal. And something told me the videos weren't the deepest thing hidden on that phone. There were other folders. Not visible at first glance. ones that didn't show until I swiped further than the screen should have allowed. And against every ounce of reason, I opened them. I told myself the locked folders were a technical quirk, a lazy seller who hadn't wiped system directories. But when I found one titled System32_Backup and realized it wasn't a system file at all, a cold knot tightened in my gut. The name felt defensive. It lived behind a password prompt requiring an alphanumeric key the phone offered no help to reset. I tried obvious combinations, seller's number, dates, strings that meant something to me, and nothing. Buried in a subfolder, I found a tiny text file named read_me.txt that opened into encrypted characters. I copied it to my laptop and ran a decoder. Fragments of plain English bled through. Field test. Archive feeding. Do not broadcast. Layer 3. 0333. Hidden images were worse. Frantic sketches, crude schematics of a device with lines radiating to ears and eyes. One drawing showed a screen with concentric rings pulsing outward, arrows towards silhouettes whose faces dissolved. Another storyboard depicted a person watching, then waves spreading as nearby figures went slack. The drawings were childish and terrifying, like someone trying to sketch a contagion. Chat logs hid under misleading file names, fragments with timestamps, but no usernames. The snippets read like planning notes. Prep the feed tonight. Layer 3 at 0333. Keep the archive hungry. One line. We need more viewers. The pattern weakens without eyes. Another. Feeding improves signal. Don't stop. It read like memos written by people who had adopted ritual language for technical ends. Audio files were mostly test tones and static. One 8-second clip repeated across subfolders. At first it was low hiss. Then a rasp became a whisper. I rewound until the waveform spiked. The breathy syllable unfolded into my name. My name. I ripped out the headphones. The silence felt absurd. I told myself it was coincidence, a sampled name in some clip. But the whisper repeated in the same cadence every time I played it. Other files held layered voices, too fast to parse, like a chant slowed until it became feeling rather than meaning. There was a PDF of an internal email thread, headers redacted, subject in caps, do not distribute. One body paragraph was an apology from someone who identified themselves as a former engineer. The line was raw. You don't understand what we unleashed. Attached notes referenced behavioral modulation, test reels, and quarantine protocols. Replies beneath were terse. Remove access. Seal tapes. The documents read like containment efforts applied to something that wouldn't be contained. I backed everything up into encrypted archives. Paranoia felt practical. But the backups misbehaved, folders corrupted, files returning with timestamps predating the device. Once an audio file re-uploaded with a date 3 years earlier. Another screenshot showed a comment thread that had been erased. Some of you watching this might already know the code name. Maybe you saw it in a forum thread years ago. The phrase archive feeding surfaced in my searches, then vanished behind takedowns. It was like tugging a loose thread that refused to unravel cleanly. I emailed the anonymous address in the engineer's PDF. That evening a reply arrived. Short, trembling. They had come through. Then one last line, typed as if the keys were pressed by exhausted hands. You don't understand what we unleashed. After that reply, the folders didn't feel like files. The sketches read like blueprints. The whisper with my name bled into dreams, then into waking moments. The hiss of my radiator, a breath behind me in a crowded subway. The locked directories had been digital, but their contents walked out of the code and into the corners of my life. After that, ordinary life frayed. My friend who told me to delete the files left a voicemail at 3:33 a.m., static and a single breath, then vanished from social media. A neighbor mentioned a person who never opened their curtains. Once I woke to find my living room chair shifted a few inches, nothing else disturbed. The phone rang with numbers that led nowhere. When I answered, all I heard was low hiss and then my own name, whispered into the receiver. In a grocery aisle, I felt the sound like a breeze at my ear. No source, only the syllable of my name. The folders were digital. What they contained had started to rearrange my life. I could feel something watching from inside me. It started with the ringtone. The phone had no SIM card. I checked a dozen times. Even pulled the tray out and turned it over in my hands. Empty. Still, in the middle of the night, it would buzz to life on my nightstand. Not with any tone I'd ever heard before. Not the cheerful chimes. Not even the shrill defaults. This was different. It was distorted. A cartoonish melody bent out of shape, each note warped as if it had been played through waterlogged speakers. It made my stomach knot. I recognized it, almost. Like a children's theme song I hadn't heard in years, slowed down and mangled until it sounded wrong, diseased. The first time it happened, I jolted awake, sweating, fumbling for the phone. The screen lit up with nothing but static. No number. No caller ID. Just a crawling snow of black and white dots, shifting as if something behind them was trying to come into focus. When I answered, silence. Then, faint and almost playful, a laugh. Not human. Not mechanical. Somewhere in between. I told myself it was a trick of exhaustion, an echo from the files I'd been digging through. But then it happened again the next night, and the next. Always at 3:33 a.m., as if something was keeping time. Soon, the ringtone wasn't limited to the phone. I began to hear it in the walls, in the hum of the refrigerator, in the distant chatter of the television from the apartment upstairs. Always that same sickly jingle, as though reality itself was bleeding in static notes. And the dreams followed. I dreamed of rooms I'd never entered, yet I knew them because I'd seen them in the gallery. The empty living rooms, the featureless bedrooms, the hallways without doors. My subconscious stitched them together into endless corridors, yellow-lit and suffocating. In one dream, I stood before a window with blinds half drawn. Behind the slats, movement. A face pressed close, blurred and too smooth, like a photo saved too many times. I woke gasping, certain I'd find someone at my window. But outside was only the still night, my reflection faint in the glass. Except, there was something faintly wrong with my reflection. The eyes were just a little too dark, too deep. I tried telling my friend about it, the same one I'd texted when I first saw the gallery. He was the only one who believed me enough to stay curious. He asked me to send a screenshot, some kind of proof. I did. Just one photo, one of the rooms. The next day he texted, not funny. Got a nosebleed last night. Woke up with my ears ringing. My phone turned itself on at 3:33. I tried to reassure him. Coincidence, I said. Sleep paralysis, bad dreams, a power surge. He didn't buy it. Neither did I. Within a week, he stopped replying altogether. I called. Straight to voicemail. Then, one night, at exactly 3:33, my phone buzzed. Not the cursed one, but my actual everyday phone. I picked up, praying it was him. It wasn't. It was the same static, the same laugh buried beneath. And then, faintly, layered under the hiss, his voice. Not speaking directly, but caught in the background, as though he were standing in a room being recorded without knowing it. I heard him say, please, and then the line went dead. That was the last time I ever heard him. I started avoiding the used phone, leaving it powered off in a drawer. But it didn't matter. The infection had already spread. My laptop glitched, opening folders by itself, scrolling through images without me touching the trackpad. Once, my TV flickered to life and showed the same static screen I'd seen on the phone, before abruptly shutting off again. The border between digital and physical had thinned. What I'd found wasn't just data, it was a pattern, a signal that wanted to be carried, to be seen, to be heard. And here's the part one regret most. The part one can't undo. Because I'm showing it to you now. It spreads if you see it. That's the rule I never wanted to believe, but the one my friend proved with his silence. And if you've made it this far, I'm sorry for what I'm about to show you. You think you're safe behind a screen, that what I describe is just a story. That's what I thought too. But screens are doors. Audio is a key. And once you let it in, it doesn't go back. The phone wasn't haunted, it was infected. And now so am I. The laugh doesn't stop. Even as I'm telling you this, I can hear it faintly under my own words, like something speaking with me, through me. Maybe you can hear it too. And if you can, then it's already too late. I know how this reads. Another midnight upload, another Whisper Channel confession stitched together to get views. You've seen the thumbnails, grainy photos, enigmatic titles, a promise of something forbidden. You click because curiosity is cheap and dopamine is cheaper. I used to do the same. Stay up late clicking threads, laughing at obvious hoaxes, leaving comments that said fake. That was a shield. It made the dark feel distant. This is not that. You think it's entertainment. That it's a rattle of pixels and a storyteller trying to goose your pulse. Tell yourself that. But the lines blur. I recorded myself, scripted my words, avoided details that might replicate the file's patterns. I tried to treat it like fiction. It didn't listen. There's a code name I've seen in fragments across caches and deleted forums. Archive0417. Don't search it. Don't type it into a search bar, paste it into chats, or let it sit in your clipboard. If that tag exists somewhere on the web, it responds. If you call its name, it will look back. Some of you are scoffing already. How could a file be contagious? How could an image be a vector? I don't have a neat explanation. All I can tell you is what the pattern taught me. It needs observers. It needs eyes and ears. It thrives on attention. Practical advice. Don't open unknown attachments. Don't stream questionable leaks. Don't download archives from untrusted sellers. More than that, don't share screenshots. Don't rehost clips. If you see Archive0417 in a thread, leave. Don't tag friends. Don't try to prove it wrong. If you still want evidence, remember one sentence. If you search for it, it will find you first. I say that not to be clever, but to warn you. The thing behind the name is not passive. It looks. It learns. It bides its time until a viewer makes space for it. I'm telling you this because I failed. I wanted the thrill of being the first to uncover something banned. I wanted an audience. Instead, I became the audience, and the audience became part of the mechanism. This confession is a plea. Protect the quiet parts of your life. Keep your screen small. Close tabs that whisper code numbers. Static is already climbing the edges of this recording. The hum that used to be background is louder, threading into my words. If you hear a breath where there should be none, if a syllable of your name cuts through the noise, stop. Close the tab. Walk away. Save what sanity you can. I know saying those words risks widening the crack. I wouldn't name them if I thought silence was safer. But silence hides victims. If you know threads that gossip about it, consider burying what you found, remove posts, delete screenshots. If someone sends you a clip, don't forward it. This isn't a test of bravery. It's a choice on whether you want to carry what it takes. They say stories end where they begin. This one folds back on itself like a file reopening, fresh and unreadable. My voice is thinner now. There's a crackle caught in the syllables, like a cheap speaker swallowing the edges of meaning. When I try to steady my breath, the microphone hiccups, and something answers me in a sound that is almost laughter and almost static. Sometimes I think the noise sits between my ribs now, a small animal that refuses to be quiet. You've heard enough. Too much, maybe. You could close this tab and pretend you never saw the words. You could scrub your history, delete the search terms, put the device back in the drawer, and lock it with a key. I hope you do. I wish I had. But quitting is easier said than done when the thing you watched wants you to watch back. The screen cuts like a heartbeat. The image folds into snow and then resolves into a face you briefly remember. Someone you saw in a thumbnail or a hallway or a dream. And for a breath, you are the one who stares. If there is one concrete thing I can leave you with, it is this. Do not be cavalier with curiosity. Don't treat unknown files like a scavenger hunt. Don't open attachments from sellers who say don't reset. Don't click every leaked title in a forum the way you used to. These devices are doors. They are invitations. And one practical line I repeat until it sounds hollow, and then I still say it. Don't download files you don't trust. If you know anything, screenshots, file names, a number, a memory, leave it in the comments. Tell your story. Warn others. But be careful how you say it. The written word pulls like a magnet. If you've seen anything like this, tell me. If you haven't, walk away now. The recording phrase here. You might hear a breath that isn't mine. If you do, shut the laptop. Close the app. Turn away. I'm sorry for bringing this into the light. I'm sorrier still that I couldn't keep it buried. This is where I started, and where I end, and perhaps where you pick up the thread. If you're listening, maybe it's already too late. One last thing. If a number flashes on your screen, do not answer it. Do not interact ever.